Hello, this is Andrine, a Jewish American priestess, and I'm bringing you today a Hebrunes reading. We're going to do a reading today that is just a general timeless reading that will be available for you whenever you find this reading. We're going to do a reading today. We're going to do 3 cards from the Sovereign Oracle deck that will guide us into our reading. There's the first one. And then we'll do some Hebrunes and some tarot cards within each of those readings. There's card number 2. And let's see what card number 3 brings us. Let me keep going because I don't see any of those specifically. And there's card number 3. Okay. So let's take a look at our 3 options for today, and then you get to choose which one speaks to you and find your timestamps down below. So for card number 1, we have Vitality. We'll read each of these in the readings more carefully. Card number 2 is Sensuality. And card number 3, Decoy. And you can pause if you'd like to take more time to discern which of these is calling to you today. Otherwise, like I said, I'll put those timestamps down below, and I will see you in your individual readings. Welcome, card number 1. The card that you've chosen is called Vitality. And let's read it together. First says, protect your energy. Invite life-affirming relationships. Release energy vampires. Honor your body's requests. So, vitality, it's just about energy. Where do we get it? How do we preserve it, protect it? And what ways are we nurturing it within our bodies? So hopefully one of those speaks to you. If it doesn't, you're welcome to choose another card. But Vitality seems to be what's up today for those of you who chose this card. So I'm going to pull out 3 Hebrunes today, and then I think I'm going to do 3 tarot cards as well to clarify each of them. Maybe we'll put that. We'll try there. We'll see how it turns out. Okay, so at the top of our reading, what's coming down from above, we have the letter Samech. In the center, which is our concern or fear in the situation, we have the letter Tav. And down low, the outcome given our current circumstances, we have the letter Chet. Okay, those are our 3 Hebrunes. We'll go into each of these in turn, but I'm going to pull out the tarot cards first because I'm curious to see how this reading lines up. So I'm going to use the Tarocchi del Palio di Siena again. It's my new deck, and I'm enjoying it very much and just getting to learn it. It's funny, at first I didn't like how it shuffled, but now I really like how it shuffles, so it's getting used to me too, apparently. So let's see, what card goes with our letter Samech today? There it is. What letter goes with our letter Tav today? And what card goes with our letter Chet today? That one. Stack. I still see that one sticking out, so I think that's where we're going. Okay, let's set those off to the side. Let's turn each of them over. These are quite large, so I may have to move things around a little bit. So for the letter Samekh, we have the Three of Wands. Going with the letter Tav, we have Spadaforte. Okay. And going with the letter Chet, we have, the Three of Swords. Interesting. Okay. A couple of threes. And Spadaforte, which is the number 8. All right, let me take a minute to consider how these 3 Hebrunes and these 3 cards play together here. In looking at the Hebrunes and the cards, as well as this card about vitality here, like I said, this is having to do with your energy, your life force, how to protect that, and honor your body's requests here. And starting with Samekh, we have the Samekh, which is the letter which means to be surrounded, and it's protection. It's about boundaries and protecting yourself, again, from life sucking different types of energies that might be trying to either physically harm you or energetically harm you. So the current situation is there are boundaries being set up. There are protections that are being put into place right now. Samekh is the letter that in the Palio or Proto-Hebrew was a thorn. So there's something maybe that is thorny right now that's happening in the world or in your life that is causing some distress. And it is important to set up good boundaries right now. It's also about cycles and circles and wheels. So there may be something that is revisiting you that has been here before, that this is a season perhaps where there's been irritation or agitation, because Samekh is the foundation of agitation in the Sefer Yetzirah. So if there has been something that's agitating you or requiring your protection at this time of year perhaps, or in a certain cycle that's happening in a relationship, that this is a time to take care, to protect your energy and set up those boundaries right now that will surround you with love and protection. And that, again, like I said, it can be energetic. You may just take some time to focus on protecting yourself by setting wards. Say, before you go to bed at night, imagine walls of white light on every side of you and above and below, and maybe encircle yourself with a bubble of light that is full only of love and goodness. And what's supporting that right now is the Three of Wands, the Three of Tre Bastoni. And in this case, the Three of Wands is generally a card of initiation. Something has been in the planning stages, and it is now time to set forth on that project. Maybe you've been waiting for something, some sign or something to begin a new project. And this, the wands generally are about, they are the suit of fire. So something is sparking, some initiation is happening. And it's about setting off on a path, generally. Could be physically, could be energetically, could be emotionally. Some kind of path has been set forth, and it's time to step onto it. The Two of Wands generally is about planning for that. The Three is about the actual setting forth. So with regards to your energy, you are possibly honoring your body's requests that is saying, go. You've protected yourself. You're surrounding yourself with this protective energy now. It's time to set forth. You have set up the boundaries that are necessary for you to move forward. If you are planning a trip, or it can also just be a trip that is more magical. So if you're taking a journey of some kind, are you setting off on some journey, a spiritual quest? it's important to set up those boundaries right now. Several people that I've been working with recently have been doing some ancestral healing work, for instance. You need to set up boundaries before you set off on that trip. If you are going to be doing some journeying inward, it's important to set up those boundaries before starting off on the journey. And, the number 3 shows up here twice, and I know that that's significant. 3s generally refer to some sort of growth or expansion that's happening. And the 3 in the major cards, major arcana, is the Empress. So again, about growth. Something has been planted in the Ace, something has been planned for in the 2, and in the 3, that thing is setting forth. So something is happening here, some kind of growth and expansion is happening, hopefully an expansion of your own vitality and life force here. But it seems to be important to protect it right now as you set forth on your journey. So in the center of our reading, we have the letter Tav, and the letter Tav is about endings. It's the final letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and it looks like this. Some say it is a stamp or a seal on, or a signature on the alphabet, that the alphabet was used to create the universe, and when that carving of the alphabet was finished, this was the signature on it. It is the final letter of the word Emet, which is the first letter, the middle letter, and the last letter of the alphabet, Emet, which means truth. So there's something here, some concern about the finality of a thing. Something is coming to an end, or there's a fear about something coming to an end. A lot of times it is affiliated with judgment, because you can see that it looks a little bit like a dalet and a nun smashed together, which spells din, which means judgment. So there's a concern possibly about some kind of final judgment, some kind of ending that is coming in. And it does rule over the moon in the sky. When I'm doing this reading, we're just in the midst of a full moon happening. So maybe there's some concern about mystery of the moon, the unknown of our situation, the darkness that's surrounding this. And matching up with that, we have the Spada Forte card. And Spada Forte is one of the contrade in Siena that has been suppressed. So that's really interesting with regards to the moon. The moon is this idea of darkness, this image that's mysterious in the sky. It's shrouded in mystery, and it kind of has this connotation of unconscious and intuition and the shadow self. And in my reading of the Hebrunes, as they correspond to tarot cards, I see the Tav as corresponding to the moon card. So the fact that we have a contrada that's one of the suppressed contrada that no longer exists, but kind of is underneath the surface here, is really interesting to me. Spada Forte is the card number 8. You can see that is the card that corresponds in the major trump cards to the Justice card. So not judgment exactly, but justice, which are related linguistically and in other ways. It's got 2 swords on it. So there are 2 swords here representing justice. The Justice card always has a sword in traditional tarot. Interesting, this one has two swords, and the ladder. And the ladder in Siena represents the hospital Maria della Scala, the Mary of the ladder, of the steps. And it's a hospital that was used in Siena for centuries to treat those who were ill, and particularly those who were impoverished. So there's a certain amount of justice that is connoted in this card of Spada Forte. Spada Forte, which means strong sword. So there's a strong sword, there's justice with it. There is this underpinning of health and taking care of those who are impoverished. And it's got down here on the bottom here this letter that appears to be, it looks like the sigma in Greek, but it is, it turns out, part of a series of celestial letters that were made from the Hebrew. And in this particular letter, it corresponds to the letter Beit. Beit is the letter which means home or house, a building of some sort, or where do we live? What is the home or our house? And I find that also really fascinating with regards to vitality, because a lot of times when I speak about the letter Beit, I speak about it in terms of where do we live, and that is our body. Here it says on the card of vitality, honor your body's requests. Take care of your health. There's a concern about something coming to an end. There's a concern about judgment. And to clarify that, we have this letter, Beit, speaking to the body, as well as the idea of justice and taking care of one's health. So there's fear. There's fear about something coming to an end. There's fear about judgment. And there is a concern about justice and bodily health. So that seems to me to be what's going on in the center here, is this concern about health. And the vitality card is telling us to honor our body's requests. So if we need rest, if we need medical care, if we need to cut out something from our life with a sword, this would be a good time to do that. And with the Tav being the final letter of the word Emet, it's like there's this stamp or seal saying this is the truth. This is what is true right now, and we need to honor that. And it's difficult. There's difficulty here. When we have to mete out justice, that's always challenging. When we're afraid of judgment, that's always challenging. And when things are shrouded, like the moon, or when they are suppressed because they no longer are visible, but they're still under the surface, that is also really challenging. We don't know what's happening. And that seems to be the case in the Tav and the Spada Forte card. And in the position of our outcome, or what may come to pass, should things continue going in the direction they're going, and I'll add the caveat that nothing is set in stone in the final place, we have the letter Chet. And the letter Chet is the letter that begins the word Chai in Hebrew, Chai meaning life. It is the number 8 in Hebrew, and to that end it speaks to this concept of the infinity loop. So there's something about infinity here. 8 is one more than the number of days of creation. 7 is the number of days of creation in our primary creation myth. And so we have one more than that, which represents the infinite. And the 8, of course, on its side looks like an infinity loop. So here we have the outcome being something that is about life and something that is about the infinite. And Chet is also the first letter of the word Choshek, meaning darkness. And it's the first use of the letter Chet in Torah. So darkness and life both begin with Chet. And they are not in conflict with each other. They're both necessary in our world. So there is a concern about darkness. Maybe there is some darkness coming that will serve to illuminate the light in our lives. And I think that's what it's saying in terms of the outcome here. And when we've got this energy situation that seems to be requiring some sort of protection, there's a potential for darkness here, but life goes on, that these cycles continue to move through. And because the 8 represents the infinity loop, we also have that message that things will continue to go on in life, regardless of the darkness, regardless of how we perceive the difficulty. Chet is also about marriage contracts and covenants. It looks like a chuppah, a little bit like a marriage canopy. And it's that idea of contracts and covenants. And I say that because the number 8 is also the number of days that precede a child's circumcision or naming. And that's the day that one makes a contract with the divine in terms of the circumcision and the Brit Milah, which is how we say that in Hebrew, which is that covenant with the divine. When one dedicates one's child to divinity by circumcising them or giving them a name, So that 8th day is significant. Chet is also the foundation of speech in the Sefer Yetzirah. So speech is important here. The outcome of our situation will have to do with speaking. And that's important, significant, because we have the Three of Swords here. The Three of Swords, the Three of Spade. And you can see the same swords on the Spadaforte. Threes are about expansion. In the case of the Three of Swords, traditionally that card is a heart with 3 swords stabbed through it. So it can seem pretty dark. It can seem very challenging. Speech is an important way to move through this. The swords represent air, and air is a form of speech. It's using one's breath to communicate effectively with others. So as we come into the Three of Swords here, there is a concern about an ending and darkness and life. And again, that tone is my chime that reminds me to take a breath and remember that the divine Shekhinah, the indwelling presence, is here with us. So as we face this concern, as we face this potential ending with the 3 swords coming at us, we need to be able to reach into our communication, our understanding that life goes on, regardless of how challenging any heartbreak might be, that we need to protect ourselves and protect our energy, that perhaps we're having a relationship with some energy vampire, and even though it may be heartbreaking to walk away from that, we need to set forth. We need to set forth, we need to set our boundaries, and the fear of the ending and the fear of the judgment and the things coming to justice may be challenging, but when we're able to speak what we need to speak and reach into our darkness, face the darkness, we can come to a place of life again. And that infinity loop, that moving on to infinity. So we have the Samic, setting up boundaries, setting forth on our journey with the Three of Wands. We have the fear of the Tav, the thing coming to an end, the justice, and the taking care of our body here with the bait, with the celestial letter down in the corner here, taking care of our body's requests. If we feel it in our body, if we feel something in our body isn't quite right, we really need to listen to that. And when we do, we'll find life. We'll find the infinity of life, even through the darkness, even if there is heartbreak, even if there's some kind of stabby thing that needs to happen. We'll be able to speak our way through this, come to a contract or a covenant with ourselves, with the divine. Again, life will reassert itself. It will be able to protect our energy in such a way that we can invite life-affirming relationships and release anything that is sucking our energy up as we honor our body's requests in this time. So for those of you who chose Vitality, this has been your reading. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, be aware that there are no definitive answers about how things will turn out, and you're welcome to check back or check it into another pile if you feel called. And I will look forward to seeing you next time. Hello, card number 2. Those of you who chose Sensuality today, let's take a moment to read your card, and then we'll choose some Hebrunes and some tarot cards to go with it. Sensuality. Try a tactile approach. Cultivate the tingle. Follow suppleness and attraction. Honor the Kundalini energy underlying the work. Release any shame in feeling the thrill. Sensuality. Okay. The way we're going to do our reading today is we're going to take out 3 Hebrunes and then 3 tarot cards to illuminate those. So I'm going to set this off to the side here, and I'll start off with the Hebrunes. We're going to pull one at the top that will represent what our current situation is now. and we have the letter Nun. The one in the center will represent our fear or challenge in our situation. And we have the letter Gimel. And our third letter is the outcome given our current circumstances on the bottom here. And we have the letter Tav. Okay. Set those off to the side. Nun, Gimel, Tav. And then we're going to pull out 3 tarot cards from the Tarocchi del Palio di Siena, which I'm really enjoying my new deck here. Go ahead and give it a shuffle. See which cards want to go with these Hebrunes. Nun. The first one is Nun, and it is our current situation. Which card is about our current situation? That one kind of wanted to come out, but let's keep going. There we go. That's the first one. The second is what's our fear or concern with the letter Gimel. There it is. And the third, the outcome being the letter Tav. And we have this one. All right, at the top we have the letter Nun and Terzo San Martino as our top card of our current situation. Our second card, going with the Gimel, is the Knight of Cups. And the third card, going with Tav, our final outcome, we have the Four of Cups. Okay. Let me listen in and see what these cards and letters are speaking to with regards to sensuality. So we're talking about our situation with regards to sensuality, which is it speaks to physical love, intimacy, and such, but also just the senses. And in our top position, we have the letter Nun. And the letter Nun is a letter that begins the word Ne'aman, which means humble or humility. And it looks a little bit like somebody who's kneeling in penitence or prayer. So our current position is, how are we maintaining our humility in the face of sensuality? I'm noticing there's a lot of red here in the reading. So red traditionally represents the root chakra, something having to do with sensuality, that sacral chakra area. So we need to remain humble, or we are remaining humble. We're coming into this with a sense of humility, and that is reflected very clearly in the Terzo San Martino card. The Siena city has 3 terzi, which is 3 hills of Siena. And Terzo San Martino represents it remembers San Martino, who is a knight, and he is said to have, when there was a particularly bad, cold, horrible weather, he saw a beggar on the street, and his heart was softened. He became humble. And he took his sword and he cut his cloak in half and gave half of it to the beggar, out of a feeling of solidarity, out of a feeling of camaraderie and humility, feeling like, there but for the grace of God go I. And he is honored in the city of Siena as one who brought the idea of chivalry to and knighthood to the area. So we have this person in this card giving part of his cloak to a beggar, and then it said he had a dream, interestingly, that he would see God. When he woke up, the weather changed and became milder, and so people were not dying of exposure so much here. So we're coming into this situation with the idea of humility and the idea of generosity, giving of oneself and not taking the limelight. Even though one might have wealth, one might have power and authority, giving half of one's cloak to a poor person will allow for the dream to blossom and the fortunes to change for not just you, but for everyone involved. And there is something about that sensuality, feeling the cold, feeling the warmth of your own situation, and being able to share that with others in humility here, with this idea of sensuality. And that could be in a relationship, an individual relationship with one person, or it could be a greater relationship with a variety of people. Using your privilege in order to help others seems to be the case with humility, and not going around then tooting your horn about it either. But when you do that, you'll be given the gift in a dream of connection with the divine, and that will change things externally as well in the world. Our central letter, we have the letter Gimel, and Gimel is said to be a horse, rather a camel, or a foot walking forward. And I say horse because we've got two horses here on the cards, and we have the Knight of Cups here. Gimel is about moving forward, about stepping forward with justice. And so there's a fear here, a concern, maybe a challenge about how do we move forward? How do we move forward with justice? How do we move forward staying in that humility? How do we continue to move forward and not just stop? And I think this is about how do we move forward? How do we step forward carefully into the next iteration? And the Knight of Cups here is perfect for this, because it is a knight, and the knights are the ones in the tarot deck who are charging forward oftentimes. The Knight of Cups is a little less charging than some of the other knights. He tends to be kind and gentle, and he offers in his cup to someone. This, similarly to San Martino, he has that chivalry idea of how can I move forward, continue to be the knight that I am, but offer my cup as well. Bring a gift, perhaps, bring an offering. And the cups represent emotion in the tarot cards. So there's something about being in your heart, really having deep, deep emotions here. And maybe there's a concern here of fear of how do we move forward with heart? How do we move forward with courage? Because courage comes from the French word coeur, which means heart. So a strong heart, moving forward, being able to offer our gifts and moving forward with humility, holding on to that humility, and not falling into possibly the sensuality that would distract us from the moving forward. So that's the concern here, is how do we move forward with humility and with emotion, with heart. And our outcome letter is the letter Tav. And Tav is the final letter of the Hebrew alphabet. We had this in the first reading as well, in a different position. But the Tav is the signature or the seal, the stamp on the alphabet. Since it is the last letter, some say that it is just that block or chop that was put at the bottom of the page to say this is finished. This is that letter, the Tav. And the Tav is often equated with justice, or rather judgment, because it has the letter itself looks like a little bit like a dalet and a nun stuck together. You can see the nun on the left there, and the dalet would be here. And that spells din. Din is the word judgment in Hebrew. So we have this idea of judgment here, a final outcome. Something is coming to an end. And hopefully it's coming to a good end. And I'm going to clarify it with the Four of Cups here. Interestingly, the Four of Cups is, in traditional tarot, seen as dissatisfaction or boredom sometimes. I looked it up in our book here, and the way they describe the Four of Cups is a third person has risen in opposition. So I don't know exactly how that plays out in the Italian Sienese tarot deck, but there's some kind of opposition that's coming in. We've got these two people. We've got San Martino and the Knight of Cups here, and this says a third person, even though it's the four, a third person has risen in opposition. So I find this really interesting, and I'm not exactly sure how this applies to your situation in your life and what your dreams are bringing you. But what I'm getting is there is this situation having to do with sensuality. There is something that is tactile, physical, very physical. And the Kundalini energy, which is sexual, tends to be sexual. And since everything's red in this reading, I think of there's some sexuality or something. And it says to cultivate the tingle and the suppleness and release any shame in feeling the thrill. So we can have humility without having shame. Shame is the sensation of I am wrong. I am wrong for existing, instead of I did something wrong. So if there's a situation here having to do with sensuality, having to do with sexuality in particular, where something was a mistake, or even if something was done intentionally, wrongly, being able to own that and change one's own behavior, to be able to make amends and apologize for whatever has been done, and not become a shameful person or fall into a shame spiral here. Remain humble. And even if it's difficult to move forward with emotion and make an offering, it's important to bring this to a completion. Whatever it is you're doing here, bring something to completion. Bring it to judgment. Come to a judgment about it. Make sure that you can see the other cup being offered. Traditionally, in the Four of Cups, there are 3 cups on the table in front of somebody, and they are dissatisfied with them. But there's a 4th cup that's coming that is unseen, usually out of the sight. So even if you're dissatisfied with the way things are working out right now, know that there are 4 cups. There is another thing that is going to come in before the end, and that you have the ability to remain humble in the situation for it. So as you're moving forward with humility, remember that the Nun is also the letter that is the foundation of locomotion. So it's a slow start, and it's a gradual start that builds up momentum as you go along. As you are coming into this situation with humility, being aware of your own privilege and your own power in the situation, starting out slowly, starting out with a very, very gradual beginning. You come into this situation where you have the opportunity to move ahead quickly, because the Gimel is about moving more quickly. Then maybe slow down, maybe hold on to the reins. Don't go tearing forward. Instead, find a way to revel in the emotions that are present. Staying present in the situation right now is going to be really important. And I say that because the letter Tav is the letter that rules over the moon in the sky, and it is what is set up as the center of the celestial temple. In the Sefer Yetzirah, there is this idea that there are the 6 sides, the north, south, east, west, up and down of the celestial temple, each bounded by a different letter, and Tav sits in the center of that. So it's being in the center, staying present, staying right in the middle of things, and not rushing ahead, not trying to make things happen that shouldn't be happening. And when you do that, you will find the emotions, you'll find the satisfaction in each of the cups that are being set before you. And that idea of being under the moon, which is that unconscious, that subconscious, that intuitive self, really listening into that intuition will help bring this to a completion, bring this into a place of judgment, being able to discern appropriately what is the right thing to do in the moment. You need to stay present and not rush ahead, not feel shame, certainly, but also don't go tearing on ahead without really sitting with yourself, with your partner, if you're dealing with a partner in this, and finding your humility, finding a way to maintain your humility here as you walk forward with heart, with courage, and find a satisfaction in the emotion that is present for you right now. So for those of you who chose the Sensuality card, this has been your reading. I hope that you found it useful and interesting, and I will look forward to seeing you here next time. Hello, those of you who chose card number 3, Decoy. Let's take a minute to look at your card and read what it says. Decoy. Look for the true culprit. Self-sabotage may be at work. Evaluate if it's something you really need to do or if it's a tempting distraction. Decoy. Well, seems to be about trying to figure out what's really going on, and maybe that's what's going on for the dreams, is how are we finding a way to make sure that something isn't happening, even subconsciously. What we're going to do this today is we're going to pull out 3 Hebrunes, and then we're going to pull out 3 tarot cards to go with them. So let's start with the Hebrunes. We'll start at the top. I'm going to pull out at the top. We have the letter Ein. In the center, we have the letter Dalet, and that's the concern in our situation. And at the bottom, we have the letter Yud. Okay, and that's our, whoa, hold on, hold on. Another letter has jumped in to take its place. It's the letter Chet. Wow, okay. I'm going to leave them both here. I guess they're both intended to be here. And that's fascinating. So, wow. Did not see that coming. All right, we're going to pull out 3 cards as well to go with each of the letters. 1 card with each of the letters. Let's see, which is the card that needs to come with our current situation and the letter Ein. The second card will be the card that goes with the letter Dalet, our concern or fear in the situation. See this one jumping out. And then the third card will be the card that goes with our final position, the letter Het and the letter Yud, which both decided to arrive today. And we have, interestingly, also 2 cards. Okay, well, again, did not expect that to be our situation, but that's what's happening. So let's turn over these cards and see what we have today. Hopefully we can make room for them. Let me slide things over slightly so that we have enough room for everybody today. So starting at the top, the letter Ein, and the card is the 7 of Wands. That close to that. I'm going to try to figure out how to make everybody fit. The second card, which goes with the letter Dalet, is La Balzana. And the last position we have here, the letter Het and the letter Yud. We have 2 cards. We have the 2 of Cups, and we have Leone. Okay. So let's set these down. How are we going to do this? Maybe I'll scooch Balzana up and we'll do like this. So you can see everybody in the... I can also back it out slightly maybe. There we go. All right. And take a minute to listen in and see what our message is today with regards to Decoy and these letters and cards. Well, I realized I could sit and listen in for a very long period of time, so I'm just going to go ahead and start right in, see what we have today. So at the top of our reading, we have the letter Ein, and Ein is the letter that means an eye. It's being watched over by the divine and also being able to see one's way forward in a situation. It's the number 70 in Gematria, and I think that's really interesting that you've got a 7 here as well, because 7 is a completion number. It's in Hebrew. It's the 7th day of creation. In the tarot, it isn't necessarily. In the case of the 7 of Wands, in particular, it's about defending what matters to you. It is usually depicted as a person standing up on a higher precipice or like up the top of a hill, and they're using their wand to fend off 6 wands coming up at them. So it's about defense, it's about protection and standing up for what's right, to really to be in a position of defense and protection toward oneself and one's ideas and community. Ayin is affiliated with the tribe of Dan. Dan, that's D-A-N, Dan, which means judgment. Dan is one of the 12 tribes of Israel, and Dan, the name, means judgment. So when I see the Ayin, it reminds me of the judgment card in tarot, which is about transformation and renewal and rising up from the dead, transitions, rites of passage. So we're looking here for something that's a decoy, something that is possibly self-sabotage, something that is the true culprit is not what it seems, and evaluating whether what we need to do is necessary. So with regards to the decoy, what feels important for me here is that we are being watched over by the divine. That's important. We're defending something that is important to us. But is it the thing that we need to be doing right now? Are we trusting in the fact that we are being watched over by divinity? Or are we standing up and fighting for something that is distracting us from what we maybe could be doing differently? And that's a question only you can answer. Is it something that we need to defend? Is this the hill we want to die on? I guess is the phrase that comes to mind. Or is there something else that is going on? Are we seeing our way clearly here in the situation? Ayin is also the foundation of laughter. So is there some kind of underlying joke that we're not getting here, that perhaps we're trying to defend something, but realistically we'll eventually be able to see the humor in it, that there'll be some kind of joke or mockery here, that again, self-sabotage often comes in the form of laughter, that we're defending something and then we see how foolish that is, and then we can laugh at ourselves. So I wonder if that's what's happening here with regards to the Ayin and the 7 of Wands. The center letter we have, which is our fear or concern in the situation, we have the Dalet. And the Dalet is a doorway, again, about a transition. It's about moving through something, about stepping through into something new. It's the letter that also Dal in Hebrew means somebody who is poor. And so it can have to do with humility and finding our way through something. I think of it as finding our way through a doorway by bowing our heads, by remaining humble. It's a threshold about moving forward into the next iteration, whatever that might be. And it's a binary transformation of wisdom and foolishness. And I think that's really interesting with regards to the Baltsana. The Baltsana is the crest or the stemma, which is the symbol of the city of Siena. And it is this black and white crest that is just simply showing us that that there are two sides to everything, that there's the white and the black. And I love the black and the white as a pattern. You can see it on the back of the cards as well, that we have this this contrast between darkness and light, that we have this contrast, but they are still the same thing. Like we have one shield, but there are two things on it. So this idea of the binary transformation of wisdom and foolishness is that same binary. It's a binary that is often depicted as black and white, but we know from reality that there's just a billion shades of gray somewhere right along that line. So we may be afraid that we're unable to discern what is wise and what is foolish. However, knowing that the black and white is not always as it seems, that's a decoy. That's a lie. I wouldn't say anybody's lying to you necessarily, but this idea that it's a false truth that things are black and white, that things are never as simple as they seem, that we may be setting ourselves up to think that, oh, either I am wise or I am foolish, there is no in between, but in fact there is always an in between. The letter Dalet rules over the planet Mars in the sky, and so it resembles this idea of a fight. So Mars is often seen as the war planet, and so it may be that one is setting oneself up for a fight here, and that Mars is coming into, that there's a fear of a fight. I would say that there's more of a concern of a fight. So this is the position of the concern in our situation. The other thing that I mentioned is that in my reading of the Hebrunes, as they correspond to the tarot cards, the letter Dalet corresponds to the death card. And death is often a frightening thing in concept. And it is also in tarot seen as just a transition. It's not necessarily a literal death. But again, that fear that is life or death, that something is going to happen and bring about certain death, is here in the center position. So we're being watched over by the divine, that maybe we're trying to defend something that we think is really, really important, that it's a matter of life and death. It's a matter of doing the wise thing and not the foolish thing. And that's the fear or concern in our situation. And that may be a distraction. That may be something that is distracting us from what we really need to be paying attention to. And I say that in part because when we get down to the bottom here, we have the chet and the yud, and when we put those together, we spell chai. So, and that spells life. So really interesting that we have vision or being watched over, death, and then literally spelled out the word life for us. I had pulled out the yud and the chet had fallen already. I'm going to look at both of these letters individually. The chet, which had come out on its own, is the first letter of the word chai, but it's also the first letter of the word choshek, which is darkness. So also referring us back up to that black and white situation. We have the chet saying darkness, and a lot of times people think of darkness as death, darkness as an irretrievable darkness that cannot be made light again. But darkness is part of life. Darkness is part of our planet. It is just one half of our day. There's nothing to fear in darkness. It's just what happens for 12 out of our 24 hours, or approximately, depending on where you live on the planet. So we need to accept our darkness and maybe even lean into our darkness in order to find what the truth is of our situation. And because we're talking about decoy here, that makes me really think that that's what we're talking about, is that we need to really look at the situation where we have some darkness to examine. And then in that, we will find our way into what the true story is. Chet is the number 8 in Gematria. So it is this infinity symbol. 7, as I said, is the final day of creation. 7 days of creation is a finality. And one more than 7 is 8. 8 being this idea of after creation, what happens, everything else, the infinite. So we have this infinity idea here with 8, with life, that Chai often brings us into this idea of the infinite life, the unending life that is given to us by the divine. And 8 is also the day on which a child is circumcised or given a name, so it has to do with contracts and covenants. It looks a little bit like a chuppah, so it's a marriage canopy as well. So it's how do we come together and make covenants and contracts. It's the foundation of speech in the Sefer Yetzirah, so it's about communication as well. How do we, again, make those covenants and contracts with the divine and with others? When I think about Chet in how it corresponds to the tarot, I line Chet up with the Devil card. And again, another scary card, a card that oftentimes is depicted as evil. But the devil is about attachments. It's about commitments. It's about restrictions and limitations, but it's also about pleasure. So a lot of stuff going on here with the idea of life and the word chai. And then next to that, we have the letter yud. And the letter yud is the number 10. It's the first letter of the divine name. It's a seed that is planted. It's like the atom that is the building block of the entire universe. It's also the first letter of the word yad, which means hand. And so there's this idea of creativity that's coming out of it. It's like a little bit of a sperm or a seed, and also the idea of how one creates with one's hands. So there's something that is creative coming out of all of this situation as you are coming through it all. And how I'm seeing the lion, Leone, and the Two of Cups corresponding to the Chet and the Yud here is we have Leone. Leone is the lion, and it is one of the suppressed contrada, so it is not currently existent in the city of Siena, but it's on like everything. Almost all of the stemme have some kind of thing with a lion involved in it. Certainly the Tuscan lion is on the flags. It's on many, many buildings in the town. I love that it has a star up here, and that star has 8 points on it. So it reflects back to that het energy with the 8. And it is the number 11, and 11 is spelled, it's written here with XI, but that idea of 1, 1, and the number 2, it's like you have 2, 2 here, or like 1, 1, 1, 1. So there's that 11, 11 number looking magic that comes with the Leone being the number 11. It is the strength card in tarot. It corresponds to the strength card. So we have the strength card here, and traditionally that is depicted as a lion that is being subdued by a maiden. So the lion here is about finding the strength to tame your inner self, finding the strength to tame the inner beast. The lion is strength, but the woman who's closing his mouth is greater strength. So we have Leone here, and with the devil and with the darkness and with the power of life, the strength of life, the Leone corresponds to the Het. Oh, also on the bottom lower left of the card, we have this celestial letter that are showing up on the major arcana in this particular deck, and that letter is the letter Pe. The letter Pe, which is the number 80 in Gematria. And so it brings us back to that 8 and that 8 and that ultimate manifestation of the 8 times 10. So the ultimate manifestation of the infinite. It's got this spiral shape to it. So it's about spiraling inwardly infinitely and outwardly infinitely. And Pe is the letter which is a mouth. The mouth of the divine speaking the creation into existence. So there's a huge amount of infinity work going on amongst this situation here. Then we have the Two of Cups, and the Two of Cups is about love. It's about expansion of oneness into two-ness. It's like that, it's like a cell division. So we have cups which are about emotions dividing into two or reuniting two together. It is frequently in traditional tarot depicted as lovers or two people coming together and raising their cups in a toast. And I love that with regards to the Yud, because I see it, if it corresponds to the Yud here in this reading, as coming together with divinity in order to create, in order to make life happen. So as we look at the decoy, as we're searching for the culprit of our situation, we have the Seven of Wands. We are attempting to defend something, possibly foolishly, and we have the Ein, which is overseeing our situation. The eye of the divine watching over us as we make the defense that we want to make. We've got the seven on the Seven of Wands and the 70 in the Ein, talking about completions. Something is coming to a completion, something we're defending, possibly coming to an ultimate completion with the Ein. that we'll be able to see our way through there. That we have the Dalit, which is giving us this idea of wisdom and foolishness, as if there is this binary that we can somehow have one or the other without having some gray area in between. And that's amplified by the Baltsana showing up here. That maybe it's something that's a distraction, that maybe this idea of, either everything's great or terrible, either everything's full of light or darkness, either everything is incredibly wise or stupidly foolish. That's a false dichotomy. It's a decoy that's distracting us from what's true. And what's true is life. What's true is the infinite exists. What's true is that we have inner strength, that we have the infinite here, that is giving us the strength to move forward, to find connection with divinity, with others, to create life. And not necessarily literally creating life in terms of like creating a child, but definitely finding our way through the darkness to find oneness with the divine. So for those of you who chose the Decoy card today, make sure you do look for your true culprit. Make sure that what you're fighting for, the hill that you're willing to die on, is worth dying on, that you can see the gray area, that even though you're afraid of death or that transition that's going to bring you to the next thing, you can move forward into this idea that knowing that life exists, that there is life within the situation, that you have the strength to get through, that you will find connection with yourself, with another, with the divine, and life will come out of this. If you can evaluate something you really need to do, make sure you're not self-sabotaging. And if you sit with your darkness, if you face your darkness and your shadow, you're going to be able to come through this and embrace life again. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll look forward to seeing you here next time.